This is the story of what happened to Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa was born on December 21st, 1940, in Baltimore, Maryland. His early life was shaped by two key things: music and science. His father worked in the defense industry, and Zappa grew up surrounded by chemistry sets and gas masks. At the same time, he developed a deep love for classical composers like Edgard Varese and Igor Stravinsky, hardly the soundtrack of most teenagers in the 1950s. Zappa picked up the guitar as a teen, and by the early 1960s, he was recording experimental compositions in his home studio. In 1959, he attended Chaffey College but left after one semester and maintained thereafter a disdain for formal education, taking his children out of school at age 15 and refusing to pay for their college. While in college, Zappa met Terry Kirkman and played gigs at local coffee houses with him. Zappa's earliest professional recordings, two soundtracks for the low-budget films The World's Greatest Sinner in 1962 and Run Home Slow in 1965, were financially rewarding. He founded a band called the Mothers of Invention, and in 1966, they released their debut album Freak Out, a surreal blend of doo-wop, orchestral music, rock, and biting satire. After Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde, it was the second rock double album ever released. It was also one of the first concept albums in rock history and set the tone for a career that would never follow the rules. Throughout the 60s and 70s, Zappa became a force of musical innovation. He blended rock with jazz, blues, classical, and avant-garde music. His lyrics skewered everything from politics and religion to consumerism and the hippie movement itself. After a short promotional tour following the release of Freak Out, Zappa met Adelaide Gale Slopeman. He fell in love within a couple of minutes, and she moved into the house over the summer. They married in 1967, had 4 children, and remained together until Zappa's death. Wilson nominally produced the Mothers' second album, Absolutely Free, in 1967, which was recorded in November 1966 and later mixed in New York. However, by this time, Zappa was in de facto control of most facets of the production. At this time, Zappa had also recorded material for an album of orchestral works to be released under his name, Lumpy Gravy, to be released by Capitol Records in 1967. After the contractual problems were resolved, a new album of the same name was issued by Verve in 1968. While living in New York City, and interrupted by the band's first European tour, the Mothers of Invention recorded the album widely regarded as the peak of the group's late 1960s work, We're Only in It for the Money, which was released in 1968. The cover photo parodied that of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Reflecting Zappa's eclectic approach to music, the next album, Cruising with Reuben and the Jets, released the same year, was very different. The Mothers' first album on Bizarre was 1969's Uncle Meat, which Zappa described as most of the music from the Mothers movie of the same name, which we haven't got enough money to finish yet. A version of the Uncle Meat film was released direct-to-video in 1987. That same year, the band disbanded mainly due to financial issues. Several members would play with Zappa again in subsequent years, while Lowell George and Roy Estrada went on to form the band Little Feat. Zappa assembled the remaining unreleased recordings of the band on the albums Burnt Weenie Sandwich and Weasel's Ripped My Flesh, both released in 1970. After he disbanded the Mothers of Invention, Zappa released the acclaimed solo album Hot Rats in 1969. It features, for the first time on record, Zappa playing extended guitar solos and contains one of his most enduring compositions, Peaches and Regalia, which reappeared several times on future recordings. In 1970, Zappa met conductor Zubin Mehta. Some of their work was later featured in the movie 200 Motels. Later in 1970, Zappa formed a new version of the Mothers. From then on, he mostly dropped the of invention. Along with Ian Underwood, the new band also included jazz keyboardist George Duke and the two lead singers of the Turtles, Mark Volman and Howard Kalin, who, due to persistent legal and contractual problems, adopted the stage name The Fluorescent Leech and Eddie, or Flo and Eddie for short. Another member of the Turtles, Jim Pons, would join on bass in February 1971. This version of the Mothers debuted on Zappa's next solo album Chunga's Revenge in 1970, which was followed by the double album soundtrack to the movie 200 Motels in 1971, featuring the Mothers, Ringo Starr, and Keith Moon. Co-directed by Zappa and Tony Palmer, it was filmed in a week at Pinewood Studios outside London. After 200 Motels, the band went on tour, which resulted in a live album, Just Another Band from L.A. In 1972, Zappa released two strongly jazz-oriented solo LPs, Waka Jawaka and The Grand Wazoo, which were recorded during the forced layoff from concert touring, using floating lineups of session players and Mothers alumni. Zappa then formed and toured with smaller groups that variously included Ruth Underwood on vibes and marimba, Napoleon Murphy Brock on sax, flute, and vocals, Chester Thompson on drums, and Jean-Luc Ponty on violin. Zappa continued a high rate of production through the first half of the 1970s, including the album Apostrophe in 1974, which reached a career-high number 10 on the Billboard Pop Album charts, helped by the number 86 chart hit Don't Eat the Yellow Snow. Other albums from the period are Overnight Sensation in 1973, as well as Roxy and Elsewhere in 1974, and One Size Fits All in 1975. Zappa released Bongo Fury in 1975, which featured a live recording at the Armadillo World headquarters in Austin from a tour the same year that reunited him with Captain Beefheart for a brief period. In 1976, Zappa produced the album Good Singin', Good Playin' for Grand Funk Railroad. Drummer Terry Bozzio became a regular band member. Among other musicians were bassist Patrick O'Hearn, singer-guitarist Ray White, and former Roxy Music keyboardist, violinist Eddie Jobson. The remaining albums released by Warner without Zappa's approval were Studio Tan in 1978 and Sleep Dirt in 1979. The double LP Shake Yer Booty appeared in March and was the first release on Zappa Records. The album contained the Grammy-nominated single Dancin' Fool, which reached number 45 on the Billboard charts. The album's commercial success was attributable in part to Bobby Brown. His next project, Joe's Garage, has been described as a bona fide masterpiece. The story features singer Ike Willis as the lead character in a rock opera about the danger of political systems, the suppression of freedom of speech and music, inspired in part by the 1979 Islamic Iranian Revolution that had made music illegal, and about the strange relationship Americans have with sex and sexual frankness. On December 21st, 1979, Zappa's movie Baby Snakes premiered in New York City. The 2-hour and 40-minute movie has footage from concerts in New York around Halloween 1977, with a band featuring keyboardist Tommy Mars and percussionist Ed Mann, who would both return on later tours, as well as guitarist Adrian Belew. It also contained several extraordinary sequences of clay animation by Bruce Bickford, who had earlier provided animation sequences to Zappa for a 1974 TV special, which became available on the 1982 video The Dub Room Special Zappa Cut Ties with Phonogram after the distributor refused to release his song I Don't Want to Get Drafted, which was recorded in February 1980. What made Zappa unique wasn't just his music, it was his mind. He was fiercely independent, refusing to conform to industry expectations. He fought with record labels constantly and started his own Barking Pumpkin Records, to retain creative control. After spending much of 1980 on the road, Zappa released Tinseltown Rebellion in 1981. In 1981, Zappa also released an instrumental album, Shut Up and Play Your Guitar. The same year, the double album You Are What You Is was released. In May 1982, Zappa released Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch, which featured his biggest-selling single ever, the Grammy Award-nominated song Valley Girl, topping out at number 32 on the Billboard charts. The 1983 album The Man from Utopia featured an anti-drug single, Cocaine Decisions. A second 1983 album, London Symphony Orchestra, Volume It, includes orchestral Zappa compositions. In late 1984, he released 4 albums. The Perfect Stranger contains orchestral works commissioned and conducted by celebrated conductor, composer, and pianist Pierre Boulez, who was listed as an influence on Freak Out, and performed by his ensemble Intercontemporain. Them or Us is a 2 LP set of studio and live rock recordings. Francesco Zappa, a synclavier rendition of works by 18th century composer Francesco Zappa, was also released in 1984. The album Thingfish was an ambitious 3-record set in the style of a Broadway play, dealing with a dystopian what-if scenario involving feminism, homosexuality, manufacturing and distribution of the AIDS virus, and a eugenics program conducted by the United States government. He testified before the U.S. Senate in 1985 against the Parents Music Resource Center's push to censor music lyrics, calling their efforts the equivalent of treating dandruff by decapitation. But as with many visionary artists, Zappa's genius often meant he stayed on the fringes of commercial success. While he never had many top 40 hits, his fan base was loyal and his influence ran deep, touching everyone from Alice Cooper and Steve Vai to modern composers and experimental artists. By the late 1980s, Zappa's health began to decline. In 1990, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer already in an advanced stage. He kept composing until the end, releasing ambitious works like The Yellow Shark, a live album of orchestral music performed by the Ensemble Modern. Even as his body failed, his mind remained electric. Zappa passed away on December 4th, 1993, at the age of 52. But that's not where the story ends. Since his death, Zappa's legacy has only grown. His music has been rediscovered by new generations hungry for something truly different. He's been the subject of books, documentaries, and even hologram tours. In 2020, director Alex Winter released the documentary Zappa, offering an intimate look at the man behind the madness. And perhaps most importantly, Frank Zappa continues to represent a kind of fearless creativity that's increasingly rare in the music world. He didn't chase hits, he chased ideas. He didn't cater to the masses, he challenged them, and he did it all with incredible musicianship, a razor-sharp wit, and complete artistic freedom.